Alright, thought I'd make another quick little video about this little lathe. If you've seen the last video about it, I was talking about a conical little spring clip washer thing that basically is the friction force to keep the back connected. So the jaw on this style chuck, I took the pieces out because if you twist it enough they just come out, but it's not threaded in, it just slips in. Like I said before, it has what's kind of like threads but not really, because it only engages with the thing on one way, and this just slips back. And it was designed to have this one is the spring-loaded one, conical little, it's just like a disc dimpled in basically spring that clips onto the back of that, on that little groove there. And there's this piece and then another rubber little boot that goes over the whole caboodle. This is failing badly. It's making it so that this cannot grip the material I'm trying to lathe, which is getting annoying because it's just like spinning out on the end of the thing, and I can't tighten it at all. So after taking it back apart and looking at it and trying to figure out a way to make that have some sort of, whether it be another spacer I make or something, to keep that firmly pressed against there without it being a spring. I don't want it to have, I don't know why that setup is a spring. It may be a safety thing, so it kicks back and you know that's as tight as you should get it. I don't know, I don't like that. I'm going to make it to where it can go in tight until it breaks, basically. And if it breaks, then that means, well, yeah, I need something better. Which I keep modifying this little thing, and eventually I'll come to the point where I decide to just get a real lathe, a cheap actual beginner's lathe, not just a learning tool like this one is. Which I bought this one to teach me not only ways to use a lathe, but what it takes to make a lathe do lathe things. So I'm learning about the precision required and what kind of parts are needed, the beefiness of them, and just the forces that a lathe is capable of. And even a small one like this is putting a lot of force on things, and it's basically teaching me a lot of lessons. Yeah, so my plan is this bit here. Let's get an up close look here. I don't want to change the camera just yet, but my plan is this bit here is oh, I'm holding it wrong. Alright, so this bit is the part that goes on the actual center shaft for the lathe, the spinny part, the motor part. So my plan is it's threaded most of the way through, but not all of the way through. And that's because it goes onto essentially a tapered shaft. After the threads, it tapers a bit outward so that this can wedge itself and really be on there. So what I'm gonna do is take advantage of that and take my Dremel and Dremel the inside out in a conical way so that I thin it out closest to the brim here, and it gets thicker all the way down as it goes to the start of the threads. And hopefully that weakens it enough. I'll put it back on the thing with this together, and I will tighten it as hard as I can. And so far this has been relatively soft metal. I don't know if this part's aluminum or not. I can't Probably is. Yeah. But it should essentially rivet and keep this part on there. And then as long as it's threaded on tight on there, it'll be fine. And then I can just add, if it's a little too tight and doesn't want to spin at all, honestly, I'm fine with that, because it'll wear over time and get loose, a little looser. But most likely, judging from how much room I have to squish this back, basically, it's probably just going to be still a little loose, but not able to slide back. So that's the plan, and I mean, that'll work for sure. For how long, I don't know, but yeah. So basically, you put the pieces in the right order, in the right locations, and you spin this thing, which just has like a little maze or hypno thingy, whatever, and this pit here, as you're putting them in, you have to put them in as the right one in the right location, as this opening here comes around to catch its little bit and start sucking it in or pulling it in, and then it comes around to the second one and then the third one eventually. And if you did it right, they're all synced up and moving the same amount together. Because of just the way they designed the spacings on all of these, it's just that. Just little gaps, and they're slightly different on each one, and they're all numbered and stuff. It's a really cheap and simple way of doing it. It kind of works, but it's not very robust. Like I said, this lathe is just a learning tool. I'm learning a lot. I'm learning that I really think I do want a real lathe. I think I should invest in one eventually. Give this one a little longer fiddling with it. See what all I can do with it. But eventually I'm going to set it aside or throw it away or something, I don't know. And get a real one. But for now, my machining abilities aren't really that great. Well, that other thing I was going to make into the other handle. This is the handle I already had made. Or no, this is the handle I already had made in the last video. And this is the handle I was making. Well, I finished it. I haven't got the piece cut off into a stubby yet. Because, well, there's just no point. I'm still fiddling with the chuck. But this one I accidentally made the hole too big. So I had one of these little drill thingies for a drill to hold bits and stuff, and I made a stubby thing for it. Basically just made use of the little stubby handle because I accidentally made the hole too big, and I didn't want to put more wood in there, and then, well, I didn't want to do all that, so I'm going to make another handle out of this, and then problem is this is too soft to do it with. I can dig my thumb into that. This is pine as well, but for some reason it seems to be a little firmer, harder. I think that's pine. That might not be pine. I don't know what the fuck. I'm not a logger. But anyways, I'm going to make the other handle out of this, but because the hole is a little too big, I'm going to wind up having to, instead of using a small shaft like this one started with, I'll just use a larger shaft and then, Dremel or grind it down or lathe it down on just the part where I want it to be the right diameter. Still be the same. In essence, it'll just end up being the same thing with extra steps. Because, why not? I don't know, gives me something to do. But, so I've got those two handles made so far. I made one little chest piece somewhere as a test, a full-size chest piece. Chest test. There it is. It's a little lopsided. I had the piece that I had in the lathe at the time was completely blocky on both ends, and I was too lazy to try and make it mostly rounded on either end. So I just put it in the lathe very off-centered, and hey, it made something anyways. It's not the greatest, but it made something. It was a wobbling all over the fucking place, especially since that chuck can't grip nothing worth a shit. Plus I put something square in a chuck made for round things. I'm learning. Yeah, I learned that even half-assed, it is going to work to make chess pieces, but I wanted a little better quality than that. So I gotta keep trying, keep progressing, making either this better or figuring out ways to work around its issues that yield better quality things. So, oh, and I made this just for shits and giggles. It is also made out of one of these little wheelchair handle pieces. Used to have the rubber bits on it. But I capped off this end with a little stubby that I lathed out and then rounded the tip off. But I made this little handle, and it's more like a little jeweler's hand vise thing, but not really. Crappier than that even. But it's a broken shaft out of an old Dremel and its little chuck. This chuck doesn't fit my current Dremel, so I couldn't use it on there. And I think I adapted it somehow one time to spin it up on there with a bolt or something, and this thing doesn't like the higher RPMs, so it kind of starts to vibrate. So once I get some more little mini drill bits and things, that'll be a good little I don't know, hand thing to hold stuff, drill bits, or I've already tested it with this cheap little razor blade kit. Effectively it's the same thing as this, and it's the same length, and it holds the same razor blades. There's a slight difference, but like there's this which has its own little chuck which uses a built-in collet that's built into the handle, or pressed in or cast into the handle. And then this basically just a nut that comes off on the end and tightens and loosens, squeezing on the collet pieces that squeeze that in there. Which it works, that does loosen up pretty quickly and easily though, and I find myself having to tighten it all the time whenever I do use blades in it. I do prefer the smaller handle over the bigger one though. But this, I realized, fits those blades too. It is a 3-jawed chuck, so it does kind of pinch them in a weird way, but it hasn't snapped one yet. So you just put it in there and sink it down in there, tighten it up, tighten it to where you feel like it's starting to bend it just a little, put some pressure on it. These are like springy steel, so it'll be fine as long as you don't like overdo it. I don't know if this probably could overdo it and snap a blade, but it holds them very tight, not loose at all. So if anything, I made another one of those by accident or just happenstance. I don't know. Not accident. Nothing happens on accident, really. But yeah, so that's neat. I don't know, I just making shit. Just seeing what I make. I don't know, sometimes when I make things, I just start making something out of stuff because I think the parts go together pretty well. But I have no clue what I'm making until it's done, and then I decide what its purpose is. I work in weird ways. I don't know. Oh, I forgot to put that. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna stop the video here. Oh, before I do that though, I did take this apart again. For now, it's off of it because I made this little table out of a bar stool to be my little section for this because it vibrates less. It's got a weighted base and everything. This whole thing weighs like 40 pounds, so it's a little bit better for this little lathe and things. It makes less noise in the apartment and whatnot. Yeah, I'm operating this thing in an apartment, but I'm just using wood little shavings. I've made the mistake of grinding on metal indoors before. I learned my lesson. I don't like metal shavings in my feet, so I don't do that no more. But yeah, so here's that shaft I made compared to the shaft that used to be in it, which is the same as what's in the bottom here, but you can't really see it very well. So I'll just grab the original one from over here, which is kind of bent. I think I bent it getting the original little handle off. But this is the shaft. Oh, camera's weird. This is the shaft that used to be in it. Much finer threads, which meant slower movement. Yeah, more precision, but slower movement. And also, it, like I said, it was just in the threaded bit. This is the part I'm working on now, is figuring out a better way to permanently attach this plate to the top of this, because it used to be just two little of its metal washer rails. They're basically just nuts or washers that are threaded. They're really thin. They're kind of shitty. And some screws with countersunk heads so that this part can go on there and slide forwards and backwards and do all its stuff. But I'm gonna make that better because that's part of my slop, to where I can fix that. The bottom didn't have much slop yet still with this part, but where it connected to the main unit was wobbly. I couldn't seem to keep that part tight. So that's another spot where I'm gonna tighten up again and figure that out to where I don't have to fuss with it too much. So those are two issues I'm working on now. And yeah, so the thread is just, oh yeah, I forgot to show you. So this piece is just threaded all the way through now. It used to have only on one side, about as long as, about the size of this little blue piece here, only on one side, pressed in a little brass piece that was threaded to fit this. And its end here was what went through there, through the little bit, and got captured by the handle and all that. And there was little, I don't know if there, I can't remember if in the middle there's a little bearing or not. I know there's a washer on either side, and I've made it to where it's a loose fit so it can twist. But I can't remember. But yeah, that's the original one, a lot shorter. This one's almost an inch longer. So I like it. That's been doing me well since I did that, and this face doesn't loosen up or anything. But yeah, so I'm going to get to that dremeling and fixing the chuck, getting that back to working so I can at least use it holding like the tools freehanding or whatever, and then slowly get all of this more sturdy. I'm thinking because I finally made a table for this, I'm going to, this part I haven't figured out yet, but I've got a few ideas of just screwing it on there basically, but I still have to countersink the heads. But as far as this attaching to that, I'm not going to do again. I'm probably going to have this firmly attached to, well, this piece of wood, the base. They're both sitting level and everything, and I'll probably go ahead and find a comfortable spot that I'm comfortable operating the lathe at, orientation on this desk and or table, and that's where I'll mount the both of them. That, or I'll cut out another piece of this wood because I have more of it, and then make its own little stand that I can then screw to the table or leave. This thing doesn't really jump around too much, so it doesn't really need much of a stand or anything. Just something, whatever it's sitting on can't be too vibraty or it's going to be loud. That's all. But it doesn't really rattle around on the table too much or try to move around on me. But yep, I'm going to get that done, and then I will come back and show you that. And that might be the end of this little video. We'll see. Alright, so I got that bit done. It's the next day. I got it on there. I'm going to take it off here in a minute and show you. I'm still going to be... I've decided what I'm going to do is cut out a board basically that's just for this. A little, maybe 12 by 12 or 10 by 10 or something, just enough to fit all this on it. And I'll still be using these aluminum components. This will get permanently attached to the top of there. Why it's able to come off, like I get, like, there's already this direction down here. Why would I double up in that direction? Just make this rail this way. I don't know. But still, yeah, I'm going to permanently attach that. I'm going to clean up the surfaces and then also Dremel and rough up the surfaces a little better. There's some spots where I can go through without hitting anything major. Put threaded pins in there, threaded into here on all four corners, and then reuse its original bits as well. And then JB weld all in there with its original little rails and the threaded pins, which I'll just make out of some threaded screws I'll cut up. It'll all be JB welded together. So it'll have its original way, which should, if all that JB weld and my pins fail, then it shouldn't be able to move still. But either way, attaching it in all the corners and with its original way should sure it up enough to not wobble. And then after I do that, I've got to then think about getting this mounted back where it was, but not able to wobble a little bit. This part doesn't wobble on its thing. This part's actually quite nice so far. I mean, it's the only part that was didn't need any adjustment too bad. Just make sure all the screws are tight to where they can't loosen up easily. But so what I'm going to do is when I get that board cut out, that's going to be as thick as this, I'm going to have another chunk of wood sitting right beside it here, which will have, it'll be screwed down to the board, and then it'll have side screws that like press this. There'll be another board on the back side of this, and on the other side that captures this. This will be screwed down. It's hollow on the inside, so that's not too hard to do, to put a nut and a bolt basically on each end so it can't go nowhere, and to help with the middle pressure, have a whole board going right here. A little 2x2 I think is what I'm going to use. I don't know what I did with it. Oh, it's over there by the ladder. Yeah, a little, and then another section here that goes all the way across. So it'll just be friction basically, and some set screws that I have. And then I might also, because that's a, I didn't think about that, did I? It can raise up out of there, which would be convenient for if I was changing things all the time, but like, I suppose I'll have to make a new version of what it had, except for more freely sliding, to put back on this side so that it's just a free sliding rail, and then this side does the tensioning to stop it from moving with the pieces that go in the wood. so that that way it can't raise up. So I'll make sure the holes line up to go into this rail and have the bolts and things I make. And that way it can move wherever I want, and then I'll go ahead and have this all the way adjusted out. Now this one, I used the original little Allen head bolts. So the head itself with the motor, oddly enough, is the part that can be adjusted easily. This part uses Phillips head frickin' screws because that's all I had that was the right thread pitch and the right sizes and blah blah. I fucking hate it. But front and back of the lower half of this part here has Allen, and it's relatively easy to quickly loosen and scoot around. So I guess I still have some adjustment there, but I don't need it. Like I said, but if I'm incorporating that, I'll be able to do longer things by undoing that easy, making it easier to move this whole thing. Because before, it used, let's see if I can find them laying around. It used these, which have a Phillips head screw that goes inside the rail. This whole thing, all these puzzle pieces get orientated correctly to where it fits inside the rail, and then you have to reach down in there with a Phillips head screwdriver. So imagine that's flush, and you have to go that way and then that way. It's tight, and then on this side it was damn near impossible. So I'm just not gonna do that. I may JB weld. I may, maybe, yeah. I may modify a few of these little rails to make them easier to slide, and then possibly JB weld them in place on one side or the other, whether it be on this side or that side. I don't know yet. Probably this side. That way, that'll just, I'll modify these as it's, I don't know what you'd call it, just the inner rails, and then the outer bit will be the bolts that I use. And yeah, I'll probably have a block of wood, and then I'll probably have a piece of metal reinforcing all that. I don't have too many small beefy chunks and I don't feel like doing a lot of metal working, so that's why I'm gonna do some of the stuff with wood and stuff, because it's a small lathe. As long as I use thick enough wood and geometry and whatnot, it'd be fine. Make sure it's all braced up right. But let's get that chuck off there. And it is, just bear with me for a moment. It is tighter like I was thinking it was going to be. And that's fine. So that's what I did. I dremeled it, and then not too much. I didn't want to thin it out too much to where then it could just, whenever I go to tighten something, it could just rip that and basically just cut that whole washer bit that's folded down off. But yeah, so it's really thick still, as you can see, and it's even thicker the closer it gets to the threads there. So it still wedges on pretty good the way it's supposed to. And yeah, I got it all back together. It is very tight, so I might wind up putting some abrasive in there, some sort of liquid mixed with something, maybe, I don't know, maybe rub some deodorant in there, toothpaste, fucking get the right stuff that's made for that or whatever. But yeah, lube it up, twist it, play with it until it wears itself in a little better, which is what I did with all of this. Basically, for that though, I used mild steel metal shavings mixed with lard. Same effect though. Because this is soft aluminum, so it doesn't take much, and it wears everything to where it goes smoother, and that's what I did, and that's how I got this system a lot smoother and everything when I adapted it. And basically this bolt that I used isn't really a bolt at all. Well, I guess it was a part of a U-bolt. It's one side to a U-bolt. It was a big U-bolt that I had that I was going to use to mount one of the golf cart looking motors, axles and stuff. But I decided not to mount them that way with just U-bolts, so they were just laying around and I needed something, and this was about the right thread pitch and the right size, and it damn near fit the hole perfectly that the brass piece was pressed in. So I used it as its own tap since it's hardened steel and that's just aluminum, and just carefully and kept lubing up the hole and cleaning out the, took my time with it and threaded it all the way through. Lard and any abrasive comes in handy, or just lard for lube. Yeah, I'm poor. So, but yeah, so these still wiggle and stuff, and this is all aluminum. Yeah, this is 100% aluminum, every bit of this. I found that out when I was dremeling it. So what I did to do this is I dremeled the conical bit. I went out on the front patio. I didn't even go out back to do it. And then without the pieces being in it, I laid it flat on my makeshift indoor little anvil, which I use the side of this, my mini sledge. So before I added the pieces into it, had it down there, and then I have my ball peen hammer there, and the ball side, and that's where you just peen, you peen over the edges and things, and like I said, effectively riveted on there. Or what do they call those, grommets? Same thing. It's just how it's done. And yeah, seems to be good. I'm gonna try and wear it in to make it a little smoother, but I like that it's not gonna just loosen up easily, because that was another thing. Not just the fact that it could back up and then just come loose that way, but it also just under the stuff. I've had to wrap the chuck like this in electric tape a little bit to keep it from vibrating loose, so that this part and this part and these parts that were sticking up were, all engaged with the electric tape as like a bit of a vibration proof setup to keep it from vibrating loose, which works, but I don't want to waste that much electric tape every time. So I kind of like that it's really tight right now, and there's probably a middle ground, but there's nowhere that it without some sort of set screw that adjusts and puts tension somewhere to keep things tight, which I might do actually. No, I don't think there's, remembering how it works on the inside, I don't think there's anywhere that I could do that with. I don't know what these holes were cast for, but on the inside they're kind of, if I drilled through, because I thought about that too, I can't do that. I don't know. But there might be a better way to make friction on it once I get it looser, and then kind of find a nice butter zone for how tight or how loose I want it, to where it's adjustable. Or just throw it in the trash and get a real lathe. I could do that. But for now I did that, so that's one unit now. It doesn't come apart anymore. Those still come out and can flip around. Like I said, it's got the little bit, and you have to put them in order to get them to, and then they're all numbered, although before long the numbers are going to be worn off on the sticking out bits there. So this is really because this is so shitty, using them the other way around seems too risky. Like, they just want to spread out when you tighten anything. So yeah, this is probably the only way they're ever going to be. So for this little machine. But yeah, so I've got it back to where I can freehand use it with files and knives and things. But I still got to work on the mount for all of that. So that'll come later. I'm not in a hurry. Just wanted to get it to where I could at least start working on this little handle. Forget what, oh yeah, I know what I was making. Oh yeah, the whole reason for my handles is concept shown right here. This was the worst because that's a little tighter now. I haven't cut this down yet. As you can see, it didn't bend down here. And that's the whole idea. I'm going to cut it about where my fingernail is. And yeah, that's why I'm making these handles. these little stubby ones to adjust it, because yeah, it's just a shitty way of having to adjust it. I wish it was like the twisty key ones or something better, I don't know. But yeah, it's just holes, and you stick a pin in a hole and move them. You know, they're two separate spinny bits, and yeah. So I'll just eventually I'm gonna cut that down, because this piece was out of one of the broken screwdrivers that I broke with a plastic handle doing this, and well, now I've bent the piece now that it's in a handle that it can't break out of. So yeah, I'll cut that down. Might use, oh yeah, I remember now. I gotta get a larger shaft because I don't have any more of what I made this out of. And that piece that I have there is too soft. It's just off of like a plunger handle or whatever, but it wasn't a plunger, it was like a fake hoe for like little kids or something. It was $1 on sale, so I thought I'd get it just for to play with use the wood, cut it down as a dowel. So, anyways, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll get on, and then I gotta cut down the shaft that goes in it. And since I'm making this a little better, I might actually be able to do the shaft on here. I have done steel and aluminum and things on here. You have to go slower, of course, but like, it is doable. So I might make the shaft on the lathe once I get this part done and shaped and then cut down. It'll be a stubby one just like that one. Can't go too thin, otherwise this one's gonna break out. Like, the distance between the hole and the outside I want to keep fairly thick. So basically that end is probably damn near as thin as it's gonna be. I might go a little thinner than that, but not much. And then it'll taper probably smaller up to, you know, about the same length as that one. So yeah, and it'll get cut and I'll use this other end for something else. But yeah, that's the plan. And then this is my whittling knife I made out of an old bread knife. It used to be about that much longer, so like from there to there. I cut that end off to make a sawzall blade actually out of a bread knife, and it worked pretty good to cut plastic. I wasn't even using it for wood, I used it to cut plastic. But then there was the rest of this, which was, you know, nice beefy handle, all heavy and strong. So I sharpened it, and then I made the end into a chisel, a nice flush. It's not perfectly square, but damn near it. Makes a really good chisel. It stays sharp very well. It's good for whittling, and I'm left-handed. It's all custom to what I like, and I like this handle. It's nice and comfy. Still can use it in the kitchen as like a regular knife now that it's not got the jagged edges. It's a smooth knife. I use it in the kitchen too sometimes. I clean it up and whatnot. But yeah, I made that little chisel / knife. I might even reshape the end. I find myself not using the chisel as much as I thought I would. It works perfectly as a chisel. I just rarely ever need to use a chisel. We'll find out when I get this all good. I'm going to test it on there and stuff. But I think I'm going to order a set of those little mini lathe tools. I've been experimenting with random stuff laying around. Even that steak knife laying there I've used on the lathe to help me shape things. So I think I'm going to get a set of the mini lathe little woodworking tools, which we'll see if they're worth a damn or not. But because I've been using a lot of different random things to help me, so we'll see about the cheap set of tools, if they work good or not. And I think in the end I'm going to reshape this blade to be, probably just go with that line there that you can see, and then it'll just basically be a kitchen knife again. or still a whittling knife. I don't know. It's nice and strong. It's comfy in the hand. It's big enough. It doesn't give me too many. It doesn't hurt my hand to push, and it stays nice and sharp. It's easy. I don't have to. I can whittle with it really well, and I like that. It doesn't look like a whittling knife, but I'll be damned if it ain't comfortable to use as a whittling knife. So, yeah. I used to have an old Barlow when I was little. I got so many scars from that. I wonder if I can see it on, you can see it on the camera. There's that one where I peeled up to the bone. And there's one, yep, there where I sliced I'm left-handed and this is my right hand. So imagine me holding a stick like that, you know, holding a stick and whittling on it. I'd be slicing the side of my thumb or whittling this way for some reason and end up slicing my finger there. Yeah, that's what happens when you give a 10-year-old a Barlow pocket knife. But, you know, I don't know, it was fun. Hurt like hell though. But it was fun to tinker and whittle. I've always liked to whittle. My arms are getting weaker, so I have to have, you know, quality sharp and makes it easier, more comfy handle. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So this might be a long one actually, combined with the other bit of footage I gotta edit to this. But yeah, I'll come back to you with another video when I've got this as a unit with the thing made. But for now, that's pretty much it. So yeah, I've fixed the chuck, modified it, made it better. Let me know what you think. I'm trying to get back into the swing of making these videos. YouTube's not going to suggest them to anyone or push them unless people are interacting with them, unfortunately. That's just how the stupid algorithm works. So I don't know if people are liking them if they just view it and then just go away. You got to actually like say something or like it, or you say you hated it or something for the algorithm to figure it out and decide who to push it to and who not to and whatnot, and if I need to put more effort into it or not. See what people want to see. I mean, I enjoy sharing what I'm doing, you know, rednecking around and making stuff and hopefully inspiring somebody who thinks that doing it the wrong way or the crappy way isn't good enough, who think, like, just because you can't afford to do things the right way or don't have the right stuff doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't. It just means you got to learn how to do things with the wrong things and without harming your, you know, it's just, I don't know. There's something there, but I'm rambling about it, but you just got to learn how to get by sometimes, and some people want to see that and get inspired by that. I know that's the kind of videos I like to see, is people just making do and making things out of other things or fixing things up that most people wouldn't otherwise fix. So, yeah. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, share, whatever you got to do, interact in some way or another. See you later.